Good morning, world.
Good morning.
I like the hat.
I love the hat. I love my hat. My Cedric and Brian hat's getting a lot of comments, a lot of looks. Make sure you get yours.
Yep, and I like the shirt, and I wore my controversial bathing suit today, and we talked about why America is controversial now. It's crazy.
When you don the stars and stripes or you wear something American, it's very controversial.
Show them the back of the hat. We wanted to be extra controversial.
Right. We're just creating all kind of static in here. But today we want to talk about what's in a name. The impact of a name, how far does it carry you, does it hold you back, and why do certain cultures have certain names? I'm Cedric.
And I'm Brian, and this is Cedric and Brian. After watching the Heather McDonald and Candace Owen, they were trying to distinguish between the lack of outcomes, like let's say in the STEM fields,
Right.
Engineering. Why is there only 3% of blacks in engineering when they make up 13% of the population? And then they would go back to, well, because look at the scores in schools, and it's like, well, if it's not the skin color, which it's not because you have the 3%, obviously, it's what we're teaching. And what their premise was, and Candace alluded to this, even when she tested higher than everybody else, her friends, her black friends would say, oh, you're just trying to be white, or you're acting white. So then I started to think, how deep does this go? And if you look back at the 50s and 60s and
Right.
the popular black icons of the day, Martin Luther King,
Right.
Marvin Gaye,
Right.
Harry Belafonte,
Sam Cooke.
When did the culture change? Because they also made, and I'm sorry to keep kind of stuttering on my words here, but Candace went and talked about how if you look back at those cultural icons too, they knew they were being oppressed. This was the 50s and 60s when there was still actual laws on the books that were segregationists and discriminatory. So what did the icons of that era do? Not only did they just have regular American names, they would wear ties, they would dress the part,
Right.
because they knew they had to outwork. They didn't say, okay, I'm a victim, I'm giving up. It's like, yes, I'm being oppressed, which they were back then. I'm going to do more so that I can level the playing field.
Okay.
So they actually had to do more to earn the same. It's not the same in 2020. And they pointed out, it's funny because Candace is going to have biracial kids.
Right.
You have biracial kids.
Yes.
She told her kids when they go to college, or she said she's going to tell her kids every time they go to college and have to fill out your race, she's going to pick black every time.
Well, I've told you that story. I told Brian the story. You guys know my kids are biracial. We did a segment on that. And my son is 23 years old. 23 years ago, when he was born, my wife and I had that discussion. She said, which box do we check? And before Cedric and Brian YouTube was even an idea in my head, I said, he's black. And she's like, well, he doesn't look black. I said, that's irrelevant. I said, because I was the dominant gene at that time, I said, he is black. And then I jokingly said, not knowing how true it was, I said, fine, put white. But when he has problems getting into school or has just denied certain things, remember this conversation.
Yeah, because it's true, and it's the reason why there's lawsuits at Harvard, because there's actually preferential treatment if you get to put a person of color on your thing. I did the same thing with my kids. Because they're half Hispanic,
Right.
They look as white as me. But I said, you mark that Latino or Hispanic X or whatever they call it now, or Latino X,
Right.
because I knew that would help give them a leg up.
Right. And think about it, ladies. Isn't that black privilege?
So then I started to think about, when I grew up, my name's Brian. I didn't know a lot of Brians back then, but it was interesting. The ones that I knew were Asian.
Okay.
And they were new Asians. They were new to the community. They had moved to the United States, and they picked what they thought at the time was a very American name.
Right.
They did that because they wanted to assimilate their kids so that they would give them a leg up, or they at least would not have something holding them back by having a name like if they were Vietnamese, Tran or something like that.
Right.
I know Chinese people that come over. They have their regular name, but then they go by their American name.
Yeah, a lot of the Chinese students that come over in the school system now, they pick Bob and Grace and
Yeah.
Jill and things like that.
And it's because the parents know that they want to give their kids every opportunity. Why put something to hold them back? So I was talking to Cedric. I said, why all of a sudden you went from Marvin and Martin and Sam to all of a sudden Deshaun instead of Sean,
Right.
or Tyrone or Lucretia, or things like that.
It's not hard to pick out black people's names. Daquan. Oh, yeah, he black. Oh,
Yeah.
he voting Democrat, too. How about this? Jerome Hairston. Antoine. Yo, he black. Yeah, he black.
My question to him was, when did that change? Why did it change? And you said you're not sure.
I'm not really sure, and that's and when Brian threw this at me, it kind of caught me off guard because I said I don't know why we went from changing our names, and I guess it was that ability to take back some power, to be independent. And Brian and I talked about this. I can understand if you're from Africa and you want to keep that going in your heritage and part of your family legacy, and you give them an African name, but no one that I know in the black community I don't know anyone who's born in Africa.
No, and then the names that they're given are not African names.
They're not African names.
No.
Yeah, the names are just kind of crazy. You take the first syllable of this name, the second syllable of this name, and the last syllable of this name, and you create this new name.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why.
Yeah, I don't either. And my point was piggybacking on the whole Candace Heather McDonald interview was, why is the black community doing the opposite of what other communities that come here knew to assimilate, and black people have been here as long as the country's been here? Why are they doing the opposite and picking names that actually segregate or separate themselves instead of making it easier just to assimilate? And that was the question.
We're going to have to leave this up for the comment section because, like I told you earlier, I really don't know, and I need to do a little research on that. But if you guys want to leave that in the comment section as to why you think that the black community does that with their children's names.
And do you think that is one of the other reasons? Cedric's named a bunch of reasons why he thinks that the community isn't progressing like it did back in the 50s and 60s. One is fatherless homes. Mm-hmm. And we've talked politically about that we think it is the government that has subsidized so many things that's keeping fathers out of the home for incentives. That's number one. One, the culture. The culture of the black community back in the 50s was jazz. It was this bourgeois. It was like high-end, high-level stuff. Right? Jazz is a very complicated thing to listen to.
Yes.
Now you listen to Cardi B talking about her wet-ass.
WAP.
Yeah. So the culture has changed. Candace talked about how if she tried to get good grades, she was called trying to be white. So all of these things, instead of saying, no, I'm trying to be successful, and now the name on top of it just seems like another thing that has moved to block or hinder black kids from assimilating, basically.
Right. I was talking to a young person about that last week, and going back to old stuff, and we all do it, back when Trump made that comment about grabbing women by the beep, and it's like, and he shouldn't say that. And then she runs upstairs and turns on Cardi B's WAP, or turns on some rap about female dogs and hoes and things like that. And I'm like, it doesn't fit the narrative. And I think the black culture has lent itself, and I think you touched on this a little bit. We've lent ourselves to being not divisive, but being unique and different and going against the status quo, almost to the point where it's almost rebellious.
Yeah.
And we can go back to this with the cops, and to not respect authority, to say what you want to say, and if you dare speak out on it, if you're someone like Brian and you speak out going against that, then you're a racist. If I speak out on it, or Candace Owens, you're an Uncle Tom, you're a coon, you're whitewashed, and the media, I don't know why they're doing it, but they just love the power of it to create this divisiveness that they allow us to do it.
Why wouldn't you make the path easier for your kids? I mean, it's one thing if the kid wants to take a stand and change his name and say, I'm going to be a powerful person, but why would the parents do that to their kids? Do you remember the song A Boy Named Sue?
Yes.
Okay, so would you name your child a boy? I know nowadays, maybe, but Sue. Do you think that's going to help or hinder him? It's going to make him tough, but is it going to help or hinder him?
Probably hinder.
Yeah.
Why don't you guys tell us what you think? Because, I mean, one of my favorite books of all time, me and Brian have read it a few times, is Napoleon Hill's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
And it says the most beautiful sound to any person is that person's name. That is, and most favorite topic for people is themselves. So you talk about themselves, talk about their name. A name is powerful, and with nicknames. You know, sometimes you joke about and you call the 7'2" person Shorty, or you call the 600-pound person Slim. Yeah. You're joking with it, you're having fun with it. But there's a lot of power in names.
Yeah. No, and that's why we wanted to bring this up, because it goes to a bigger point. So we're trying to look for solutions. So this may not be a solution, but why is there only 3% black in engineering? Is it because of systemic racism, or is it because, for one, they're not being taught at a young age that that's what they should pursue? Instead, they're pursuing, they think they're going to become the next Michael Jordan or LeBron James, or they're going to be the next rap star. Why not pursue something that's more realistic? You're not going to be. It's a small percentage that's going to be a professional athlete.
Right. And I'll say this, it's not a racist comment. These are just, we're not giving racial comments. We're giving statistics and things that are going on in our culture. When Asians come over here, Chinese, Japanese, their parents, for the most part, not all, are very serious and conscious about making sure that they're academically inclined. The black community, and because I said before, like Brian said, because 70% are coming from a fatherless home, maybe moms working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, they're left to be babysat by PlayStation and Call of Duty and things of that nature. And then they go to basketball practice and baseball practice and all these other practices. And the emphasis isn't placed on education, on reading. I like to read, but I know a lot of people, just black, white, whatever, who don't like to read. The Asians make it a point. You will study, not 3 hours a day. You may study 9, 10, 12 hours a day. And the results show when they do that.
And to go back to, because the left will tell you that there's only 3% because of systemic racism. I've met racists. I've met people that you can tell they're racist. They don't like Asians any more than they like blacks, any more than they like Hispanics.
They're equal opportunity racists.
Yeah, if they're white nationalists, they like white skin. So, again, the Asians seem to do fine here. The Nigerians, who are very dark, seem to do fantastic here. If you just look at the stats. So if it's because of racism, because white people just say, oh, I'm not going to bring this person up because of the color of the skin, then why do those people of color do fine? And it's because what we keep saying, it's what they're taught. When you come over from Nigeria or some other West African country, you're taught, no, you work hard. We're bringing you to America because you have that opportunity. They work hard. They do fantastic. Instead, we've got people here that say, don't act white. If you speak proper, you're acting white. If you get good grades, oh my gosh, you must be acting white.
Don't be on time.
Instead, we're saying, listen to Cardi B, look up to people like LeBron James, and it's very damaging. And then the thesis of our conversation is naming kids with these names that separate them right from birth. Is that helpful or hurtful? What do you say?
Again, we appreciate you guys watching our show. We're just trying to bring up stuff, not to be combative, but just to talk about these things in an adult manner. But if you like our show, make sure you like, subscribe, ring the bell, and make sure you share this video with everyone you know. And until next time, I'm Cedric.
And I'm Brian. See you later.